This episode is brought to you by Polestar, a car brand designing a future that's 100% electric. Polestar is saying no for all the right reasons. No empty promises, because Polestar turns visions into reality. No greenwashing, because their words are set in stone. No conquering Mars, because Earth is their priority. No compromises, because the planet deserves real action. Get the full story and explore the Polestar 2 at polestar.com.
NIL Now, a podcast dedicated to the name, image, and likeness of today's college and high school athletes.
Name, image, and likeness is a good thing for players.
NIL Now, where the stars of tomorrow are getting noticed today.
It's time to make a statement.
Lauren Sisler.
So we're going to explore the crazy and wildly interesting world of name, image, and likeness.
And Kevin Jones.
It's the Wild Wild West, but we're wrangling it in, and we're also keeping our eyes on it with this show.
This is NIL Now, presented by Headline Studio and Reddit.
I think the guests and the stories that we talk about will bring a lot of insight to what people want to know about NIL.
I love that.
Welcome back to the Beaver Banter podcast. I'm Nick Daschel, and I cover Oregon State football and basketball for the Oregonian and OregonLive. The Beavers finished their regular season Saturday against Oregon with a 12:30 game in Reser Stadium. OSU's coming off a nice little 31-7 win over Arizona State last Saturday. They improved their record to 8-3, 5-3 in the Pac-12, and they're clearly in the race to finish, somewhere around third, fourth, or fifth in the conference standings if they can finish the season off with a win. Joining me on the podcast, as he does every week, is former Oregon State cornerback Kyle White. Welcome back, Kyle.
Thank you.
All right. I'm not even sure where we should go to start with here, but we'll figure it out. Let's see. I think maybe I'm going to start with the rankings. Oregon State, let's see. Today, we're taping this on
21.
We're taping this on Tuesday. Yeah, they were number 21 in the college football playoff rankings, number 22 in the AP and coaches. I'm just curious. Did you see that coming?
Truthfully honest, I didn't. That was a positive light on it. We talked about at the beginning of the season they had potential of going like 8-4, and that's just good for me. But now you look at it, and now we're like nationally ranked, and we've been now for 3 weeks. So we were 23, came back 23, now again 21. I mean, for any Oregon State fan, this has just been a dream. This is awesome. This is cool. This is exciting. And there's so much that we have to love for this program and like the potential that Coach Smith and the roster can take this to go.
Yeah, I'm thinking, if Oregon State could beat Oregon and then polish it off with a bowl win somewhere, I don't know where that's going to be. I honestly think it's going to be the Sun Bowl, but it might be better than that depending on what happens this weekend. I mean, at 10-3, I could see Oregon State finishing in the top 12 in the polls, which, I mean, good grief, given what this program was like 5 years ago, that's huge. No offense to you, Kyle, but,
I mean, I won't lie. I love it regardless. I mean, yeah, from going from the team that was completely horrible that had at one point a 2-win season, I want to say, or a 4-win season, either one. And then you got a team that flips it completely opposite, and they're murdering it. It's like, I'm just excited to see the program do well. Wish I was on this team now. But regardless, I love to stay a part of the program and, get to have my little 2 cents and input every week. So,
yeah,
love Oregon State and love the accomplishments that they've had going on.
So I thought we might talk a little bit about bowls, but I started thinking I'm not even sure it's relevant right now because it just depends on what happens. It just depends on what happens Saturday. If Oregon State wins, it kind of depends what Washington does and what Utah does. Well, Utah's going to be Colorado for sure, but UCLA depends what happens with UCLA and Cal. I mean, there could be a better bowl game out there. I mean, everything is really – I mean, I've even heard crazy talk that Oregon State could be, if everything broke right and Beavers beat the Ducks by, I don't know, 3 or 4 touchdowns, that maybe the Rose Bowl is a possibility. I don't honestly believe that, but I mean, I just think in any situation where Oregon State and Washington are tied somewhere, the Rose Bowl has to take the Huskies. I mean, the fact that they beat the Ducks and beat Oregon State. I mean, if I was Washington, I'd scream if they took Oregon State to a Rose Bowl. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's a slight possibility of the Holiday Bowl, a slight possibility of the Vegas Bowl. Most likely, it's going to be the Sun Bowl. I don't think they're going to return to the LA Bowl. There's a couple bowls below that are in the mix too. But I think it's probably better if we just stick with they're going somewhere. Probably the Sun, but maybe something a little better, maybe something a little below that. So I guess we'll go from here is maybe we'll start with the Arizona State game because that's kind of the freshest memory. I don't know if that was their best game of the year, but it was pretty close. And given the fact, I think it might be just given the fact they were dealing with all the injuries they dealt with, and they still played like a top 15 team. I mean, it just didn't matter. I mean, they did whatever they wanted to a team that's down, but it was senior day. I mean, they played with some emotion, and Oregon State just broke them. They just broke them in the third quarter. Arizona State just gave up in the third quarter because Oregon State was just better. And I mean, that was impressive to watch, but
I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah, I think there was a couple parts to it that I loved. It was one, I remember hearing before the game that Coach Smith was really going to try to focus on the pass game. You could see that the ball got out a lot. It was getting around, pushed around everywhere. They made a lot of plays offensively. And, secondly, I love the defense. And, we had a lot of guys hurt, but not one piece seemed as if it was actually missing. They played well. They played organized. They played together and in sync. I mean, yeah, again, they played as if they were a ranked team, and they came out and beat the brakes off of Arizona State. And that's all you really want to see is no matter who's hurt, the second guy comes in and they make it seem as if nothing even happened. So.
Well, the game plan early on was pretty smart, I thought, by Brian Lindgren, is that he wanted to get Ben Gulbranson going early, and I think they threw the ball on 3 or 4 of the first. I think he threw 3 straight passes to start the game. I mean, they were all low, high percentage, short balls that he could get in some rhythm, and he did. And then they were able to turn to the running game, and then they were able to keep Ben going. He was 15 out of his first 17. I mean, at one point we were thinking this was going to be the best game by a quarterback percentage wise in school history. At 15 out of 17, he was right there. Then he threw some incompletions and sort of brought the percentage down a little bit. But the point is, when he was hot, I mean, they were rolling, and I just thought Ben's command of everything out there was an A effort. I mean, he seemed to always get Oregon State in the right play. He threw the ball with accuracy. I mean, and for the first time this year, he ran the ball himself, ran 9 times for 36 yards, and kept drives alive. Only one of those runs was a design run. The rest of them was Ben going, okay, the play's not there. I'm just going to take it and see what I can get out of it. And he didn't always just go flat out go down. I mean, a couple times he put his shoulder into a guy and got a couple extra yards. So I don't know what you saw to Ben, but I thought that was, if that wasn't his best game, it was probably one of his top 2.
Well, I think that's just the opening of Ben. Like we were saying earlier in the season, he is a redshirt freshman. Is Nolan going to come back? And I think Ben is the future of this organization, of Oregon State. And so, as he's getting those reps, as he's getting the time, and as he's getting the plays in game, he's starting to have this understanding of an awareness of when to actually get rid of the ball, to pass the ball, where to, seeing coverages, and then knowing when to run the ball himself. So, he doesn't have interceptions. He doesn't have bad incompletions. He can still get yards. So I think the more that he's in, the more confidence he's getting. And the more that Coach Smith is trusting, the more he's going to be able to be that person to lean on. Just him and Martinez in the backfield. You got 2 young guys, but they understand and they play as if they're upperclassmen. And so, when you have that, that just sets a great foundation for the next couple of years coming down the road. And so I think he played amazing, and I think he is leading the team to a bright future in the coming years.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm willing to say he's the quarterback for years to come, but I would say he has got to be the quarterback Saturday, which he will be. The Nolan is not ready to come back yet, and he's got to be the quarterback for the bowl game too. I just think he's earned that. The offense is running well under him. I don't think you can make a change at this point, even if Chance Nolan is 100% in late December when a bowl game comes around, because Ben has earned the right to keep this job. Now, come spring ball, if they want to have a competition, Chance Nolan was the starter this year. He earned that job. So I think at a minimum, they got to at least give him a chance, to compete with Ben for the starting job next year. But for this year, it's got to be Ben Gulbranson, I think.
Yeah, I don't see anybody else taking the spot. I mean, I think it's going to be a great fight come next year between Ben and Nolan. But, I mean, if I'm looking future-wise, I would take Ben just because he is younger and you have more years to help him develop. There's, as a redshirt freshman, sophomore, there's stuff that you're always not going to be able to be great at. But with you being a starter and getting that experience, there's always ways that you can progress and get better at.
Yeah. Now, as a quarterback, you look pretty good when you got a guy like Damian Martinez back there. I mean, he is on a heater right now. 5 straight games over 100 yards. I mean, 5 games ago, he had 145 yards rushing for the season. He's now at 867. I mean, he's on the doorstep of 1,000 yards after really with almost nothing after 5 games. I mean, he's the hottest. He's as hot as anybody in the Pac-12 at this point on the offensive side anyway. Just what does a guy like that mean to both sides of the ball for Oregon State, knowing you've got a guy you can hand it off to? And I mean, even if he stopped, as you saw Saturday, several times he got stopped for 2 yards and he ended up getting 7, 8, 9, 10 yards out of it because they just couldn't put him on the ground. What does that do for a team, both sides of the ball, to know you have a guy like that?
I mean, it's a lot of confidence, and it's like, you have a lot of belief in one guy. So at first I believed that it was Jack Coletto, and he was that guy, like when you needed the yards, you can get the yards. But then Martinez sort of came in and he developed himself, got that confidence to know that he is that guy, and it spread like a wildfire. You believe in him, and when you need those yards, those yak yards, the down and distance, and it's there, he's a guy you can also go to. So they now have more than one person to lean on. And I mean, Martinez, he shows how capable he is, even as a true freshman, to lead this team and, be the ground game that they need to excel with. So, it's great for a team to have somebody like him. I think Oregon State is doing phenomenal. Their O-line trusts him like no other, and they're going to block like no other for him. So I respect everybody on that team, that staff, and Martinez is absolutely killing it right now.
Yeah. On the defensive side, I think, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, they were as good as they've been all year with plenty of injuries Saturday. I mean, who would have known that Oregon State could play the way they did without Jaden Grant, without Alex Austin? I mean, they didn't really give up a whole lot. Oregon State's defense has given up 1 touchdown in the last 2 games. Cal scored its only touchdown on a fumble return, and then Arizona State had that 1 second quarter touchdown. That's it. That's all they've given up the last 2 weeks. I mean, this defense is, every week it just seems like we keep saying looks like the best defense in the Pac-12, and they're proving us right.
Yeah, I think they're just getting better and better. They're hitting all cylinders regardless of who's in the game, and it's starting to show that Oregon State has more depth than just their first string. And so, when you have that, it's harder to beat because no matter if a guy comes out, the next guy that comes in is just as good as the first guy. So I think that, like as the end of this year comes, the beginning of next year, I feel like it's just going to pick up where it left off. And it's just going to be still really well. So I'm excited to see this game, especially this week, with their receivers, with a mobile quarterback, and really like how well this defense plays. Because I think this is going to be one. It's Oregon State. It's the rivalry of the state. On top of they have a great quarterback. The schedules, the way that the records are showing right now, Oregon's doing really well. Oregon State's doing really well. And I think that this game is anybody's game, and I'm excited to watch it. I think the best part about it is that it's in research, so we have all the ability to come out with a win.
Yeah, I thought one guy that had made a big play that sort of went under the radar was Easton Mascarenas-Arnold. He had a sack of Arizona State's quarterback during the second quarter. It just seemed to take Arizona State out of the rhythm in their passing game because they seemed like they were getting some stuff going. He sacked them on third down, and after that, they really didn't do much through the air. It just seemed like they were the only thing they had was Valladay, the running back. He had that one drive where he ran the ball quite a bit, but after that, they really didn't do much. I thought that sack was big, and then I thought they put a lot of pressure on their quarterback too. Oregon State's pressure on the quarterback, even though it doesn't show up in the sack total, has really been kind of impressive this year on how they can make quarterbacks throw before they want to throw it.
No, yeah, I agree. I think like their D line, even though they don't get the pressure for sacks sometimes and not, our blitz packages are amazing. Our hurry ups are great, and so they get to ways of pressure, which like that can throw a quarterback off. And so I think even though you could say, oh, they don't have the biggest or the best D-line, we have a very strategically smart D-line, and they know what to do, when to do it. And so I think that Oregon State's really good at that.
Yeah. I love sometimes how Spates will walk up to the line of scrimmage and they have no idea if he's coming or not. And there'll be other guys that'll walk up to the line of scrimmage. There'll be times when they got 7 guys just standing there, and I'm sure the quarterback is just trying to figure out who's coming and who's not. And they got a lot of stuff going up there that is making it tough on opposing quarterbacks. But which leads me to the one area of Oregon State's game that hasn't been good lately is the kicking game, at least the field goal unit. I mean, the kickoffs have been fine. The punting's been great. Extra points are extra points, but the kicking game is for field goals. It doesn't cost Oregon State a game of late, but man, what is the number? Was it 9 of? Is it 9 of? Yeah, it's 9 of 17 is what they are. They're worse than the Pac-12 by quite a bit. I don't know. At this point, I'm not sure they can fix anything, but I'm just thinking they need to start going on fourth down in any sort of short yardage situation, 4th and 5 or shorter, because the kicking game has just become so unreliable that I just don't know that you can send your, I understand Everett Hayes has had some issues with groin injuries this year, but it is what it is. I think you're just have to start going for it more in short yardages, because I just don't, I'm not seeing any confidence at all from this kicking game.
No, I agree. I think that the kicking game for Oregon State right now is pretty stressful. I mean, if I were a coach, I'd go for it more times than not on 4th down. 4th and short, 4th and 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th. Yeah, 5, I'm going for it just because you're seeing week in and week out 3 points not being converted. And, you never know what's going to come to it. At the beginning of the season, we're winning games by just a little. But, yeah, as of late, we've been winning games by a decent margin, which is nice. But what happens when a game like this upcoming game could be, where it's going to rely on your field goal kicker? And do you trust it? Does he trust himself? Does he have the confidence to make it? Is he going to make it? Statistically, it doesn't seem that way. So, it's stressful as a coach. And so when you look back at Jonathan Smith's sort of like resume, fourth downs, he can go for it. He understands how to get those yards. And so on my side, I would think that he would go for it just because it's like, hey, I'm not sure if you're going to make a field goal or not, or a 3-point conversion. Like that's what I need, but I don't know if you have the ability to do so. But I know that I have this team, the offense that can get that third down, fourth down conversion to keep the chains moving, to hopefully either put us in a better position for you to get it or for us to score. So that's where I would go.
Yeah, and I think Coletto's going to be back this week. That's kind of where I think things are headed. I mean, we're not 100% sure if he's back, but if he's back, that makes those decisions a little easier to do too. I just think at this point in the season, you are what you are, and you can fix the kicking game during spring practice in the summer. Right now, just do what you got to do to keep drives going. I wouldn't kick a field goal unless it was something right in front of the goalpost, pretty much at this point. But okay, so that's enough Arizona State talk. That's in the rearview mirror. Now we're on to the main course here. The Oregon Ducks coming to Research Stadium. You played in two of these.
I
won
did.
one. You won one. It was 2016. You lost one in 2017.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the loss is the one that people remember the most. Am I wrong? Am I wrong there?
Not at all. And that is the one that haunts me for days. I still remember that day as if it was last week. Man. All I can remember is they had that some song like wave surfing going on. Like it seemed like every 30 seconds they would score. And then they would play that song, and you look at the whole crowd just going back and forth, side to side. And, I mean, yeah, they didn't let up the whole game. And it was hurtful. It sucked. And that's the way my college career ended. And then, 30 minutes after that, we got on the bus. And about 5 minutes after that, we all saw a text or had gotten some message that said the Oregon State staff was fired. And it was just like, thing after thing, and man, it was not a fun day to go out as your last game for Oregon State. But on the flip note, yeah, we won in 2016.
Yeah, that was at Reser, and that was a bit. I mean, what do you remember from that game?
The ground game, the rain, the cold, the hype, the bad calls. Them storming the field, Marcus McMarion throwing a great game, literally Ryan Nall with a good game. That game was amazing. It's definitely one that you remember like play by play. The atmosphere was awesome. The crowd was amazing, and yeah, again, it was so rainy and in ways that played to our advantage, and we were so prepared for it. So yeah, I loved every moment of that game and just hated every moment of the next one.
Yeah, there was some run up to that second one too, wasn't there? With the a lot of talking, and how much of that stuff was accurate, that the stuff Oregon was getting all fired up about.
There was a lot of talk coming into that game, and it was all pretty real. So
yeah. What was that like on the field early in the game? Were they saying stuff to you guys as they were running into the end zone every 3 seconds, or?
Truly, I don't even remember. There was moments that like I remember the game. I don't remember the score. I don't want to remember the score. I don't want to know what it is, so don't have to tell me.
Okay.
But I remember score. I remember like them scoring. I don't remember what happened after the score. I just remember being right back on the field, and it happened again, and it happened again, and it happened again. And so like it was just a repeating moment the whole game. It just seemed as if they stayed in the end zone. And it was, I don't even remember our offense really being out there. I think at one point, Mason Moran played quarterback. I don't remember if Darryl played quarterback. Who else? I mean, it was definitely probably like one of the ugliest games one, in my career, and two, I feel like almost an Oregon State like sort of history.
Not a game you want to end your career on, but you don't really get that choice. It's over, and Anyway, so let's flip here to 2022. Oregon State was to win this game, they'd be 9-3. Like we talked earlier, it would open some doors, perhaps for some bigger bowl games. You talk to former players. What do you think Oregon State being 9-3 would mean to former players in this program?
I think we'd all be super excited. I mean, my whole group, I think everybody would be beyond happy. And I think when you think of like the state of Oregon, let's say when we lost every game a season all year long, but it came to the Oregon State game and we'd win that, it's almost as if we'd won the whole season. So with us having a good winning season so far, and then we're to come out with this win, I feel that it would make any fan, any alumni, everybody just so excited and just like happy for weeks on end, because we would be the champs of the state. And so, I mean, I know for a fact that as soon as that'll happen, I will be wearing Beaver gear through the whole next year, up until the next Civil War, because you are the champs, you're the state title. I think every Beaver alum would be the same.
Do you have any friends that are former Ducks at all?
Yeah, I made a bet with my boss. She's a Duck. I said that I have so much faith in Oregon State this week that I made a bet and said every day of work, when we win, you will come in Beaver gear for a full week. She said, bet. And if you lose, you wear Duck gear for a week.
Wow.
Yeah, I look back at that and I don't know why I sort of did that, but I have a lot of faith in this team, and I know that it's going to be a great game.
Well, we might need to see some photos of this. Yeah. Well, I can't really root for either team, but I'll just say I'm hoping you don't have to wear Duck gear. Let's just say that. So,
so am
I. So Oregon's defense, it's been inconsistent. I don't think that's any mystery, and they've been a little bit vulnerable to the pass, but they did play well against Utah. So you got to respect what they did last week for sure. And they've had moments where they've been pretty stout, particularly against the run. And that's part of the problem here. Saturday is that Oregon State's going to want to run the ball, and I kind of think for them to win, they're going to have to get something out of the passing game, and they're probably going to have to get something deep in the passing game, because that's really where Oregon seems to be most vulnerable, is throwing deep. You need Anthony Gould back. I think he's one key. He didn't play last week, because you need as many receivers that can make big plays as possible. And there's no question that Anthony Gould's one of Oregon State's best big play guys. Do you think Oregon State's got it in them to, have a big game through the air, even if, again, they're going to run the ball. There's no question about that. But I do think they're going to have to. This is going to have to be Ben's probably his best game in terms of passing yardage, I would think.
I think that this Oregon State team might play their best game this week just because of the game that it is and the team that they're playing. I mean, when you look at the rivalry, it's not a Alabama Auburn or anything like Texas A&M or any other school, but the thing that it holds most value to are these players. And so I think they come out with a whole different mentality than they have almost all season, where they want to make every play and they know that every play counts. And I think that Bolden's going to be a star asset. Harrison's going to come up with great catches. Martinez is going to somehow get loose, and it's going to happen. I think Ben's going to play a good game because the people around him are going to want to play their best game. And so I think this is going to be just a great game to watch, and I'm really excited and stressed, and like I have been all season, nervous and you got all the emotions, and they're going to feel every emotion as well. But the main emotion they'll feel is overly focused. on doing everything they can to come out with a win.
I was going to ask, did you have any, I asked Jonathan this and I don't feel like I got a great answer out of him, but I said, with players, they run a wide range of emotions when they go into this rivalry game against Oregon. Some of them, Oregon's just another game. They know it's the rival and they know people are going to care about it, but they either didn't grow up in the rivalry or whatnot. And then you got some other people that just have this intense hatred for Oregon, and nothing about Oregon makes them happy at all. And I'm just curious, for those type of people that just hate Oregon, the players that just hate Oregon, is that a good thing, or at some point you have to dial that back a little bit so you can focus on what needs to happen in the game? I don't know if you had any teammates that were just out and out, had total distaste for Oregon.
I don't think we had any, not that in my memory we had anybody that had a dire hate, but they understood the situation, they understood who it was, and how much this game meant to the university and any alum. So there was a lot of actually. There was one person, he had no hate, but his emotions were definitely raw to the team. And in ways you can capture that and you can use it as it's dispersed through the team. And, everybody gets that same energy. And so you play hungry, you play bigger, better, faster, stronger, so on and so forth, however you want to name it. And I think that energy is good. But for that specific player, it has to be dialed in a certain way, because what can lead up to it is penalties, false starts, so on and so forth. But when that energy is pulled out right, it is emotion that is then turned to the whole team. And they use it to a positive. So I think, we don't really have anybody that hates Oregon, but we understand how big of a game it is, but at the same time, it's just like every other game. And that's what we're told all week. It's just like the next game, but there's that but on it, so.
Right. The biggest matchup in this game, obviously, is going to be Oregon State's defense against Oregon's offense, and more specifically, how Oregon State's defense contains Bo Nix. I mean, Oregon State's defense right now is hitting on all cylinders. I'm going to guess Alex Austin returns this week. I'm going to guess, Jaden Grant's going to be questionable. I don't know if he's going to be able to play or not, but I think everybody else is going to be available. I think Coletto's going to be available. It's just not going to be enough to stop Oregon's run. They're going to have to impact Bo Nix. I don't know if they can get him on the ground, but they got to impact him and keep the big plays to a minimum. I'm wondering, okay, can Oregon State do that? And they've proven they could do that with a number of good quarterbacks in this league. But I'm looking at what they've done at home this year, and to me, it would be surprising if Oregon had a big game on Saturday, just given what Oregon State's done at home this year. I mean, you look at what Oregon State's done. They gave up 17 points to Boise. They gave up 17 to USC. They gave up 10 to Washington State. They gave up 9 to Colorado. They gave up 10 to California, but really only gave up 3 because that was a fumble. So, I mean, they've given up, 30, 34, 44, 53. The defense has given up 56 points in 5 home games. That's like 10.5 a game. I mean, that's pretty good. And then you look at the numbers. I mean, Boise, they gave up 311. SC was 357. Washington State was 378. Colorado was under 300. California was under 200. I mean, Oregon's not going to get 500. They're just not. And if they do, well done, because that just doesn't seem possible. So I don't know. I mean, as much of a challenge as it's going to be for Oregon State, I think Oregon's going to be even more challenged to crack Oregon State's defense in this game.
And those numbers that you just called out, you can even go back to the year before and run those numbers. I mean, we won every home game in the year 2021. So, I mean, I think that the home field advantage for us is something that's so much more serious than a lot of places. I think the fans have came in and it became a bigger impact. I think that the team understands this is our home field. This is where we play, and we're going to always do our best here, no matter what, in front of our fans and our family. And, I mean, yeah, I think that it's going to be a hard task for Bo Nix and the Oregon offense. But I think that, yeah, just as much, Oregon State's going to have a real fight. And I think that they come out and they understand. And, yeah, I agree with you on every point, though.
All right, well, let's wrap it up here with a pick. What are you thinking for Saturday? I
was wondering when you were going to ask that. So I think it's going to be 21-17 Beavers.
Wow, that's almost what I was. I think it's a 50-50 game. Really is. I mean, either team could win, but I think just given it's at home, Oregon State's defense has been playing well. Oregon State, Gulbranson's playing at his best level. I was going to pick a 21-16. I thought the Ducks will get 3 field goals and a touchdown, and the Beavers, since they don't kick field goals, they're going to get 3 touchdowns. So 21-16 is what I think. 21-17 is what you think. So let's see how smart we are come Saturday.
We'll see.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I've had a pretty good year this year picking Oregon State games. So I don't know. Maybe the whole thing comes crashing down on me on Saturday. But we'll see where this goes. But I mean, yeah, pretty good chance to win Saturday. I really do. I mean, I wasn't sure that a couple weeks ago, but I do think that. I do think they're going to win on Saturday. So, and obviously you do too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's slam the door on this thing, and that's all the time we're going to have this week for this week's edition of the Beaver Banter podcast. Be sure to check out OregonLive for all our Oregon State content. We'll be back next week. We'll wrap up the regular season with Oregon State and the Oregon game, and then we'll probably take a look at bowl possibilities and what it might mean and all that. And we'll see if we're right or not, and then, but regardless whether we're right or not, we'll chop up, see what we can come up with from analyzing Oregon State. So we'll see you next week.